You got one life, for crying out loud. You might as well just give it all you got.
The Deej, Dan Jordan.
Your daily dose of reality. Your daily dose of the Deej.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I need my daily dose of the Deej.
I make the news. I don't watch the news. I'm a leader.
The Sales Energizer, Dan Jordan.
Listen, don't worry how to sell, baby. Worry about why people buy. And it's fun.
You don't need a 5-hour energy. All you need is the Sales Energizer.
Just when I think it's not going to be as fun as the one before, each one gets successfully better. Success. What's the word I'm looking for? What's it going to take to get you into this car today, huh?
And now, please welcome the Sales Energizer, Dan Jordan.
Boom! That's exactly it. Do that. Let's do that. Ha ha! Here we are. You know, I'm watching that intro again, and each time I watch it, I'm thinking, man, it's been a year or so, and my hair has gone completely white. I mean, like, it used to be blonde. I used to be able to fake myself out. You know, it's still blonde. You know, it's that kind of ads. You know, it's just.
It's been a rough year for a lot of people and for a lot of things, especially Dan Jordan's follicles. So
yeah, that's right. It's
and any chance I get to use the word follicle, I'm gonna use it. Especially,
that's right.
Especially when we're live on all the tubes. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're on Twitter. And believe it or not, still people I'm telling every day. We're live on Amazon. Amazon Live is a thing. So if you're over on any of those other tubes, don't say it, Dan.
Okay. The fallopian tubes.
Yes.
Okay.
We're just close. We're just close. So if we're still
well,
live
you said follicle.
And well, that is okay. You can go. We made it easy for you. Just go into your browser and type in thepitchman.live, and then you're here on Amazon with our buddy Ryan Swanstrom and Lamont Wayne already in the chat on Amazon. They know where to be, Dan.
Yeah. Well, I don't think, you know, on most occasions they're here for the Deej, but today we got something even more special. You know, you didn't really, but yeah, it's the Amazon thing. So you had emailed me earlier because I know our show tomorrow. You see, you talk about follicles and all this, so you're like a big hotshot, but you didn't know what MREs were. Tomorrow's show, we're going to do MRE. MREs are meals. You know, our Army people know what they are. And I'm sure that our warrior, our leader of the rebellion, is going to know exactly what they are too. And I want to get this guy up here because it's one of the few times people are not here for the Deej. So let's make it happen.
All right, let's do it. Here's a little bit of an intro as to what you can expect.
Get ready.
You came here hoping to learn about us, about the Sales Rebellion, about what we're going to do to increase your sales, to improve your results. But see, in the rebellion, it's about the rebel. It's about you. What you're really searching for is hope. What you're really searching for is purpose. What you really need is an awakening so that you can finally understand that the reason why you're not being as successful as you want is because you don't believe in who you are.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome to Dan Jordan Live, the leader of the Sales Rebellion, Mr. Dale Dupree.
There he is. You see, he knew it. See, Dale had his arm. We didn't have to watch him raise. The man comes prepared.
That's how I roll, you know. It's just how I roll.
That's all right. Well, listen, I can't tell you how much I've been looking forward to this. I've been watching you from afar. And you know, there's a few people out there that are originals, and everybody else is pretty much copying that. And it's it's kind of special when you get to meet the person who's actually inventing the stuff that you've been stealing. And so thank you personally. And
I know that means a lot. That means a lot.
And so from someone now, if you don't know what the way I know of you, the way I found out about you is just I'm big into marketing. I like copy. I'm just a big fan of copy because it's basically a sales pitch in words. I just love that. And so I studied a lot of the old people, the old masters, and you get stuck on Dan Kennedy and Halpern and all this stuff. And then your name came up, and I said, this guy's not even dead yet. This is real stuff. How did you get started as such a young man in this kind of world?
It's a crazy thought to think, actually, when I go through my content sometimes, that I write every post and I write it in the morning before I write it. It takes me about 30 seconds to a minute every single time. I do. When I watch other people, create content too, I do say, thank you, God, for the gift, because otherwise I think I'd go crazy. But yeah, I appreciate the compliments. And listen, everybody that's watching right now, Dan is the real deal too. He's not saying that, but this guy called my cell phone after he sent me a LinkedIn message. Like, he found my cell phone number and called me to say, hey, I want you on my show. Let's do this thing. I thought that was awesome. I was floored by that. I've never had a host do anything like it before. So props to Dan. Okay. And that intro was sick too. Not that I haven't seen some of your stuff, but man, that got me hyped. My arms were in the air the whole time during the intro as well too, right? I was over here freaking out. So, but yeah, Dan, I love to write, bro. I love copy because it's experiential, right? It is literally my experiences being portrayed through a website or a blog or a video or whatever else that we're doing it on. And it gives you this transference of the emotion of, particularly of what's happened to me, of what I've been through, or good or bad, to help you in your own sales walk in the first place. So to me, it's a no-brainer to kind of give away my secrets, as people like to call them, which are really just my experiences, because it helps people to say, man, I'm not alone in this, or wow, I've always thought this way, but no one has ever backed me up. And here's this guy doing it. And because I really want to highlight the silent majority of sellers that are out there. I struggled when I first started the company on the name, and a lot of people kept coming back and saying, just use your name. You have a big reputation in Florida from selling copiers for so many years and being, the top stud in the industry, and just use your name. Your name it carries weight, it carries power, but it's not about me. And so it was really difficult for me in the beginning to kind of brand this thing. But we came up with the Sales Rebellion because we are looking for the rebels that are out there in the industry that will disrupt it continually, not just what they've been doing, but they'll start to pass those things down to the next generation as well too. Because I learned from my mentors, a silent mentor being Stu Heineck. I read his book, How to Get a Meeting with Anyone, and was like, this is my guy. Like, this guy's hype, this guy's fun, this guy does things that are different. And I took that and turned it up to 11, because that's just the way that Dale Dupree rolls, right? But again, our focus is on the rebel, more so than it is on me, more so than it is on the company even. It's about the people in the community. So that's what we're building.
That's exactly right. And if you don't know, so you're one of your I guess linchpins that you like to start people out with is the crumpled letter approach. Could you tell a little bit about that?
Sure. So it was 2009. There was this thing called the swine flu happening, right at the 2009, 2010 mark. Yeah. And I was selling into the federal space a lot. And like, for real, though, no pun intended, I was selling into NASA and some of the big groups.
With
so I
copiers?
was literally, yes, I was literally selling copiers into space. So it was a lot of fun, but you couldn't go knocking on doors when there was a pandemic happening. That was a pandemic. It wasn't as bad as what we just experienced by any means. However, I couldn't just show up to places anymore. And I started to sit back and think, well, what am I going to do? Well, I got on the internet and started Googling everything. And I found a realtor in Florida who had written a blog about how he was sending direct mail, and he was sending these letters out to people that were they were 90 days out from like their house being listed and not being sold. And he was getting like less than a 0.05 return on these letters. So what he did is he started taking the envelope and crumpling it up so that it looked like this. You can kind of see it there. Yeah. So it would look like it was garbage, right? And he was putting in red Sharpie, "Don't throw me away again." And I got this idea. I said, hey, that's genius. Well, I took it one step further and created an entire sequence around it. So I have the coffee stain letter. I have the letter that's been traveled all over the world to find you, the busiest person there is. And I created more than just this one touch piece, because it also, when it came back, it was this 2.5% return as opposed to this 0.05 return. I thought, well, that's a big number, but like, I bet you could get more, because I bet if you could get 2.5 on the first letter, you could send a second and a third and a fourth and even a fifth. And so I created a sequence, and the ideology behind it is, again, this experiential concept. That's what we're all about. We want to be creative and give experiences to people. So imagine that in a coffee stain letter that you pop this bad boy open and it smells like Folgers, and you pull out a piece of paper that's got more stains on it, and it's telling you, hey, 90% of the sales and marketing you get is better used as a coffee coaster. So I went ahead and preset this one for you, make it nice and easy for, a spot for your coffee, mug. So again, this ideology of interrupting the typical patterns is what we live and breathe by, because sales is stale, it's boring, it's generic, and it's the same thing repeated over and over again, expecting a different result. And we have to break those chains as a generation, especially mine, the millennial generation, so that the next generation has a better experience. And that's not just the seller, that's for the buyer too, because sales is service. If we are not leading as servants and giving experiences, then we should just get the F out in the first place, because we're not going to be doing anything good for anyone at any point except for ourselves. And that's not what we're about.
Gosh, look at this. I don't even need to say a word. I don't got to lead this guy on for anything. This is all. But, here's the thing that salespeople need to recognize. What Dale's doing is he's just rehashing it. So sales, like you said, is stale, but it's always been that way. And there's always been outliers, creative people doing things. In the walk-in space, when I would walk in, my favorite promotional piece was a garbage can with my logo on it. It was a garbage can. And I'd put all my promotional material in the garbage can. And I'd walk into the place and I'd put the trash can on their desk. And I said, I know you're going to throw all this stuff out anyway. So I figured I might as well do it for you. And I give them and you know what happens? They reach into the garbage can and pull out your promotional material. Yes. Just disrupted the same way. But you killed it and now what do you say to people that say that direct mail and long format doesn't work anymore?
I would say that anybody that is denying that anything doesn't work anymore, like email or cold calling, that you're ignorant, and you need to get a step out of that space, because it's not creating any growth for you or anyone listening. Because the people that are listening to you, that you're influencing, you're also ruining their sales outcomes that they could have by walking them down this path of just ignorance is what it is. Mm-hmm. It's ignorance, and it's a faulty arrogance as well too. There's a healthy level and amount of ignorance or arrogance that needs to be had. Jeff Bajorek says it best, but at the same time, you can't let that lead to ignorance. You have to be open-minded about certain things. You got to know what you're really good at, but you got to know how to take risks as well too. But I would say this too, Dan, that it's all about the experience. Right. I don't have one sitting in front of me, but we also send for copier reps, because we do a lot of training in the copier space. Actually, I do have one sitting in front of me. We send out these little foam bricks. So there's texture on this thing, but it's foam. It looks like a brick. A copier rep or an MSP, even somebody selling in the IT space, anybody with a tangible product, honestly, they send this out with instructions on how to throw the brick at the product that they're currently using when they're frustrated at it, to take out some of that emotional charge that they have, from being down for 4 hours or not being able to fix something. And in those moments, we're connecting with people. It's the same concept of the crumpled letters. And it's the same concept of the Rebel book or the Rebel calendar or the Rebel resume. We have tons and tons and tons of different products that we use inside of different spaces. But the bottom line is that it's all about experiences. If you believe the direct mail is dead, or that some type of selling experience is dead, you're ignorant.
Yes, that's exactly right. And so I always tell people, listen, we don't live in an either or society anymore. We live in an and. So for instance, your letters, one letter, you send one crumpled letter even, probably not going to work. You send a sequence, it works a little better. If you send the sequence and make a phone call, works even better. If you send a sequence and a phone call and stop by and say hello, it's a sale.
Yes. Sequencing is definitely more than just the touch piece itself, right?
Yes.
Sequencing is utilizing an omni-channel approach as well. And then the follow-up is extremely important too, because it has to be experiential. If you're sending a follow-up saying, hey, did you get my letter? I'd really like to sell you something. What are you doing? But if you're telling a story that furthers that even more, hey, I dropped a letter off at your front desk, but you probably didn't get to you because the receptionist, she probably loved it, took it home to show her mom, and it's already on to the next place. But if you did get it, let me know. And that's a very open-ended statement around, something that we're trying to build with somebody. Salespeople are headed to this destination at all points, and it's a dead end, in my opinion. It's book an appointment, book an appointment, book an appointment. Jeez Louise, guys. That doesn't work in this day and age, especially because people are very aware of what it is that you're doing when you're cold calling, trying to sell something. But people prefer to be buyers, not sold, right? So people prefer to understand what it is that you're selling, who you are, what's your reputation, the product itself. Do I have a need for it? What kind of value does it bring to the table? And so because of that, the only thing that sales reps should be leading with is familiarity and zero expectations of an outcome. So they should detach and they should say, hey, I'm just going to go for the gold on this. I'm going to give people experiences where they're like, man, I wish this guy or girl worked for me. Especially if you're selling to people in positions of C-level ranks. They could literally hire you. Even if you are just a salesperson, they could see you in their organization. And when you can bond on that level with people, you're in a completely different playing field than every other sales rep that's dialing. So I totally agree with the sequencing concept that you just talked about, that omni-channel approach. But I think it's also about the mindset too. And I think you'd agree, Dan.
Well, it's the mindset of giving. Like you said it several times, you're giving an experience. You're creating a relationship. You're not taking anything from anything. After they get your letter, they're a little better than they were before they got your letter. And just like you said, people hate to be sold, but they love to buy. I think that's a Jeffrey Gitomer line.
Yeah,
And that's what we do. Everybody steals everybody's lines. And so you never know where they come from.
Credit, right? As long as
you never know where they come from.
Yeah,
I give Dale the free credit
I've got
for
a
it all.
question.
Jeffrey might have got that from me, guys. I just want to say that. Okay, I don't know. He might have got it from me. I honestly, I love that guy. Actually, there's two people. Just to put it out there, there's two people I've ever looked up to in the sales space, and it was Zig Ziglar, and it was Jeffrey Gitomer. And that's actually how I found Stu Heineck, who's kind of like that other side of it because I believe Stu's more of a marketing guy too. But really those two guys, my dad turned me on to Zig Ziglar and I found Jeffrey Gitomer from that. Right. But I've never really followed the rest of them. So I don't really
have you met him?
No, I wish. I did kind of meet Jeffrey Gitomer in 2013. I kind of met him. I was at a conference that he was at and I yelled at him across the room and said, hey, I love your work. And he, said something silly because he's I got
his cell phone here. And when we're done, I'll make sure I hook you guys up.
Yeah, please. That'd be awesome. I'd love to.
No, he's as good as they get. I'll send him this clip.
He'll open the crumpled letter. Guaranteed.
Yeah, he'll open the crumpled letter. He's a big big fan of that. But I'll tell him that you invented that line. And you know what he'll say to you? He literally copyrighted it. He's got the copyright.
That's
people hate to be sold, but they love to buy.
I take it all back.
What kind of drink did you have there? What is that drink?
This is a Spindrift. I'm a non-alcohol kind of guy, so I drink these sparkling waters all the time. And,
available on Amazon?
Amazon.com. Yeah.
Okay. I haven't heard of it.
I'm sorry. So I interrupted you, Chris Stone.
No, I was going to say, you touched on it, Dale. You touched on mindset. And, I think when someone says, okay, do things differently, and that works not just for salespeople, it works for content creators, it works for many types of businesses. Like you can't continue to do the same thing over and over and over and expect different results, and that works. But so as far as what you consider a sales rebel, how do you work with those to be able to have that mindset of, it's somewhat logical to say, okay, all right, cold calling, it works. And, all of these things, I need to try these things differently. How do you work with someone to develop that mindset and to get themselves off their rear ends and get going?
So we start inside of our system, we start with this concept of what we call rebel roots. And when we're teaching a rep, we find it fun actually, because a lot of times I think when people first get into the system that they think like, oh God, what have I paid for? Because this guy starts asking you very personal questions. You don't have to necessarily answer them, and we don't set it up that way where it's like, tell me all of your secrets. But we have to defeat and slay the robot of the status quo within us. And a lot of that comes from past traumas. A lot of it comes from past experiences. A lot of it comes from this identity of what the sins of the forefathers, before us have created, right? This bullpen mentality, this toxic sales culture. And a lot of them didn't mean to do it, to be quite frank, just in knowing a lot of people that were around in that generation and managers. I've even had people say to me, man, like if I'd have known that there was a better way and somebody would have influenced me, I wouldn't have led the way that I did in the first place. And so I think it's important to forgive as well, too, the things that have been kind of shoveled into people's, for lack of a better way to say it, mindset, and allow reps to move on. That's what we do, though. We allow them to move on. We get them to express, like, why is it hard for you to write content? We don't just say, you should write content. We ask, why is it hard? Man, I have a hard time making cold calls. Okay, well, let's talk about that. Call reluctance. Yeah. Well, why? Why do you have call reluctance? It's one thing to identify like the problem on the surface, and it's another thing to go a little bit deeper. And listen, like, I think it's extremely important for my generation to hear this, especially that there's not enough vulnerability, that we are so guarded with a lot of information. And I get boundaries. I'm totally okay with boundaries. I believe that that's an important thing, but set yourself free. Because even if you're not telling me, tell yourself, tell a journal, tell a loved one, a spouse, a family member, and set yourself free from these things that are literally holding you back from the success that you've been called to. So we start there. And when we start there, we get people in this mindset of, I'm willing to try anything, especially because they see intrinsic value just from these small exercises that we do, where they go, wow, I've never really thought about this or that, or there is something in my life that's been holding me back. And I had a conversation with that person even that was the culprit, and we high-fived and hugged, and I feel so good about it now. Like when we free people from this 1 or 2 or 3 particular pieces of their puzzle, it's on like Donkey Kong. We can get them to do anything. We had a kid a couple days ago, super proud of this kid. He's got a lot going on in his life too, but his organization basically has him making, $100 a day kind of thing. And they put him through some development with us. And we started saying, well, how do we make more appointments and still hit your metrics? Because sometimes we got to play ball with what leadership has already put in front of us. Well, we had this kid one day, he set 8 appointments and 20 dials, and no one believed it internally at his organization. Like no one believed it. It was that almost unattainable in the way that they had been doing it. Right. Well, then he repeated it. And so now it's at this point of like, this is something you can do multiple times. And again, it all started with get rid of the status quo, slay that robot that's sitting there telling you, bah, 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 beep, 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 do this crap and it'll work. Right. It doesn't. And as soon as we can get through to them, which sometimes takes a couple of weeks, right? Sometimes it takes a month. Like it can take a little bit of time, right? But once we get through to people, because we speak on a heart level, because we believe in real change, we don't believe in that surface level garbage. We're not here to show up to your kickoff and spend an hour screaming at your team, telling them to get on the phones and push harder. We want to see people grow inside of their mindsets, inside of their personal lives, their business life, inside of their success. We believe that people that are out there that are called for something so much greater, and they continually deny it because they haven't had somebody come along to give them permission. And so anybody watching right now, I give you permission. Do it. Rebel. Yes.
And, we say many of the same things the same, and it's difficult for people. I'm naturally, I couldn't care less. I'm naturally vulnerable. I mean, anything, I'll say anything, this background here, totally fake. I mean, it's a wall. I mean, it's not my house. The hell do I care? So by the way, that's available on Amazon. But the point is, I just don't care what to say. But there are people, and it's tough for me to realize, but when there are people that are very guarded, and they built those, and you said the right word, obstacles in their mind that are not there in the real world. And I know you yourself have had challenges with that too. I think we all, for me, I need to keep busy. If I ever want to find the devil, I know where he is. He's in the white spaces in my calendar. If there's empty spaces in my calendar, I'm going to start questioning all my life's decisions. What are you doing here? Why did I go into this direction? And so I have certain, tactics that I use to get out of that space and into the right space. I know you've had challenges with that as well. Maybe you could talk about that.
Yeah, from a mental health perspective, I think it's important that sales reps recognize, especially when they first go into sales. And really what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell a story real quick of one of my mentees who was hype. He was ready. He graduated college, went right into an organization, started selling. And within 5 months, he's calling me saying, I don't know if I got into the right place. And then also telling me that he had his first anxiety attack of his life. And these are extremely important subjects that we don't talk about enough. I struggled with depression and actually had attempted suicide at a young age. And my mother saved my life in the midst of everything that was going down. And so for me, I was already very aware of that deep darkness and sadness that dwelled within me. And I had already been fighting it. But man, oh man, again, no one told me like, hey, by the way, when you go into sales, your depression is going to become like a murderer on a daily basis. It's going to be stalking you. It's going to be after you, and it's going to take every certain crossroad advantage of each and every single one of those in order to push you further and deeper into that darkness and into that sadness. And I'm not saying that it's anybody's fault, but thankfully I had an amazing leader like my father who was very aware and could tell my moods and could understand when I was slipping into something, to be able to sit with me and talk and let me release a lot of those things as well too. But my dad helped me to really separate myself from the outcomes, because that's what we're chasing in sales is outcomes all day long. And my dad started to say, dude, if you sold $1 million this year, that's awesome, but you could do it next year or the year after. You got to build up to that. You got to create relationships. You have to affect change. You have to treat people correctly. You have to change your mindset. And the people that are telling you no, he said, dude, those are the best sales down the road, because they'll see your perseverance. They'll see you pushing through, and not like, forcing them to stay on the phone and forcing them to get an appointment. But I used to do crazy stuff, which we teach in the Rebellion, to like on a little bit of a smaller scale, because some of it's nuts, right? But I had a really terrible cold call with somebody one time at the beginning of my career, and I actually made them a cake with sparklers in it. And took it down there, lit them up, and left it at the coffee table in the front and said, hey, this is for so-and-so. And it just said, I'm sorry. And it had my business card on it. And then there was a note with it that I expressed like, hey, I called you. It was a really bad call. I upset you. And I just wanted you to know that I truly am sorry. I didn't mean to ruffle your feathers. And that person bought copiers from me, 4 or 5 years later, but eventually they did. And they developed a relationship with me, and they allowed me to stay in touch. So I think, again, it's about this idea of where do we go when we're in those moments? And for me, I always went down until my dad taught me that. But I will say this too, because I, at an older age and as a top producer, I allowed, when we were just talking about it and you just mentioned it, people are so guarded. I started to guard certain things. And that seeped into that sadness and that darkness. And by the time I was 27 years old, I was back in that same place. And for about 6 to 8 total weeks, I was living a double lifestyle. I was going back to the more violent side of me that I denounced and I don't want anything to do with. I was hanging out with the wrong crowds again, late at night behind the scenes when nobody could see me, kind of thing. I was definitely disloyal to my wife in the way that I was living this double lifestyle, not communicating with her, not being honest with her. And I took myself all the way to the bottom and basically decided I was going to commit suicide again for the second time in my life. But this time it was less of you were a child and more of you're a grown adult in the middle of what's going on. And so I logically placed myself in my own state of death. And said, this is actually a good thing, and had those conversations with myself. And there's a spiritual battle that happens during those times as well, too, especially for anybody that's listening and are going through those things. I tapped into something pretty raw and pretty intense, in the process that also brought me out because it exposed it. And to me, it's God. And it always will be. And it got exposed where I was in those moments. And when somebody sat me down and said, I can't believe that you've gotten to this place again. I thought to myself, when I heard those words, I thought to myself, that's the problem. That we all sit back and just say like, oh, there's no way that you can do that again. There's no way you can go to that place again. But my mom and my dad and my wife were the opposite. They were like, all right, well, the war's not over, dude. Don't forget, like, you've got a long life ahead of you. And if you lose battles, it's okay, but you've got to communicate. You've got to tell us what's going on. And the pressure from all that, man, I was making tons of money, selling tons of copiers. That doesn't matter. When you're still losing deals, when you still have people telling you to F off, when you show up at the front door, when you get yourself into environments, especially with salespeople that are toxic as well too, it just tears everything down. Don't care how thick your skin is. You're a human being at the end of the day. And the thickest skinned person can be literally have the rug pulled right out from underneath them and not even know it. And that again goes back to the argument of ignorance that we talked about earlier. Don't be ignorant about your own mental health and your own walk. Like, be humble and understand that the best of us have these types of struggles. Look at all the billionaires and millionaires out there that you think have it all together, yet here's they're getting divorces and they're losing half their wealth and their business partners hate them and their employees think they suck. And like, what kind of legacy is that? You know, everybody struggles with this kind of thing. It's the mindset of like, who's willing and brave enough and lion-hearted enough to share it, not just for sympathy or pity, but to help the next generation, to help somebody listening to say, maybe I should try to take these roads and allow people to climb the ladder of glory and not to sit in this stale state of depression any longer.
Preach it, brother. That's it.
Well, you better preach.
I've said, several times, you want to be a better salesperson, first be a better person. And the way to get to the point where you could really feel glad. Something good happened to a client of mine. He sent me a text. He said, this is my best week ever. I think I'm having my best week ever. And you can just he sent me a text, but it was an audio text. And like, I felt so good for him. It was as if it happened to me. And, to get to that point, from all the different obstacles that we're facing, man, you did it best, Dale, when you gave everybody else permission, to fail or whatever they did in their past, or, permission to succeed. I'm telling you, what you did and the way you were able to move to the next level is you forgave yourself. For all those indiscretions, you just forgave those things. And until you forgive yourself, you don't have forgiveness to give to others. And that's what you're sharing. The permission, guys, it doesn't matter what yesterday is. Today's a new day. Let's go after it. Be the best you can be. I had an old coach who would say to me, when you go to bed at night and you're there with your own personal God and you close your eyes, you ask yourself one question: was I a plus or a minus today? I mean, it was like no in between. You're either a plus or a minus. Nowhere to go. Well, that's excellent. So you brought yourself out and you're back and you're helping others, and you have a tribe of these rebellious people. How does somebody get a hold of you, or how does somebody dip their toes in the water with the Dale Dupree Sales Rebellion action?
Yeah, I always tell people that I've worked on this for a long time. And so I always tell people, just Google Dale Dupree and you can find like my words, but in the form of somebody else's show like this one, or somebody else's blog, or somebody else's article that I've guest written on, and hear it from the perspective that you need to hear it. Because I even though I have different perspectives and can give them on different subjects, it all comes back to a core belief and a rebellion for me. And it'll help you to understand and connect with what it is that we're really, truly trying to get people to put others over products, to put community over commission checks, to put experiences over performing pitches, to put fellowship before negotiations. It's simple at the end of the day, but it's complex at the same time, because if we're going to be these relationship sellers, we still need to understand what it means to sell, right? At the end of the day, because if we're just saying, yeah, I'm going to be a nice guy or a nice girl, like that's not a servant leader. Like sometimes a servant leader says things that are difficult to say. Sometimes a servant leader asks things that are difficult to ask.
Give me an example. Give me an example of something.
I love it. I love it when people say that their prospect has been saying, hey, you're in the running. I really like how yours looks. You're up at the top, but I need a few weeks, right? I like to just ask that person, straight up, and I tell my reps to do this as well too. Hey, normally when I hear something like that, it means I'm not going to win. And it's okay if I'm not. I'm not saying that you have to expose that right now. Even I want a very firm relationship with you, and so I want to come out and ask you that question right now because it's difficult to ask. And I want you to know that I'm not afraid of the difficult questions. I'm not afraid of the difficult moments. Just like when something breaks and you're using another person instead of me, I want you to remember this conversation and remember that I'm not afraid to tackle these things. And I like that identity of meeting someone where they are instead of faking it until you make it or allowing people to skirt around issues, because this is the identity, folks, for all that are listening, of don't talk about politics or religion, right? That's what this is. Because you've never talked about politics and you've never talked about religion with people, you don't know how to act around people. And it's the same thing with sales. And in the process of sales, it's like all this secretive stuff behind the scenes, like, oh, don't tell them this, but they look pretty good. You know, I mean, like, What is that? Like, we're here to serve each other, and we can serve each other by saying no just the same, right? So to answer your question.
Yeah. They Google you. Yeah. So
Google me. Yeah. Google me or go to thesalesrebellion.com and you can hit the community, join the community tab at the top. We have a free Slack channel. You can listen to our Selling Local podcast on there, or you can read our Sales Rebel blog and learn more about what we're about. But one way or another, the website's got a lot to it. Content daily on LinkedIn, /IN/Copier Warrior if you're trying to find me, at Sales Rebellion on every single social network, including TikTok, if you want to go see what we're stirring up over there as well too. But I'm out here. Come find me.
Yeah. He actually is, and he's accessible too. And as you can see, we can get him over here. I say that to people too. I just, because people want, I'm here in Atlanta, it's South. People are nice, man. They just don't want to say no to you. I mean, you got to give them permission to say no to. I say to everybody, listen, it's okay to say no to me. You can't hurt. I'm from New Jersey. It's impossible to hurt my feelings. I couldn't care less. We'll still be friends. Please say no to me. And it's remarkable because it always has a good result. You may not always get the sale. Sometimes they say no, but it's always a good result. You're seen as a different level than everybody else. And I don't, why do you think that's difficult to say? Why do you think those questions are, what's holding people back in your experience? But let me stop for you for a second before you answer that. I want to let everybody know that little Slack channel that he's talking about, you can just come on Snaggle. There's like 8,000 people on there. So it's not like a little pissant thing. The guy's got a tribe like nobody's business. He's a real deal here. All right. I'm sorry. So go ahead. Why do people have that obstacle?
I think that it comes back to conflict. Like, we just avoid conflict naturally as humans. And the other side of it is that if we do crave it, if we're weird and we do crave it, we like it to be drama more than we like to just come out with it. Like, people don't really enjoy transparency because of something that's happened in their life at some point is usually how it looks. But listen, guys, my dad came to me when I was a kid and said, "Hey, I was an alcoholic, son, up until you were born, until you were a year and 4 months old." Like, my dad had conversations with me like that. Mm-hmm. And he didn't say it to like influence me one way or another either. He said it because it was the right thing, the real thing, and the raw thing for me to understand. My dad took me into inner cities and let me play basketball with kids that didn't look like me and said, "Dale, it's important that we give attention to the Black and brown people in our communities because they deserve it and people neglect them." My dad never sugarcoated anything. He was very transparent, raw, and real with me. And so I am. And again, like you said, all these outcomes are good. Listen, let's go back to that same scenario. You look real good. You're up at the top. They email you a month later and tell you no, which was 3 weeks after the deadline. Yeah. Everybody knows it. Don't pretend like it doesn't happen. You have one shot at earning someone's trust and credibility in those moments. Take the shot. If you miss it, it's okay. What was it, Michael Scott or Wayne Gretzky that said you miss every shot that you don't take or something like that? Yeah. But again, the concept is it's simple. And it's about being, if you can be more transparent and honest with a stranger that you're building a relationship with, if you can't, I should say, how the heck are you going to do it with people that you love and that you trust and that you know? because you're going to slowly get yourself into these moments and modes of like, it's okay to tell a little white lie here to my husband or my wife. It's okay to just kind of ignore this thing that's happening. It's like you just said earlier, Dan, you're not going to be a good person if you can't be a good salesperson. And good salespeople are servant leaders that are extremely transparent and are not afraid of doing the difficult things. And you can soften that ask. Hey, Dan, this is really hard for me to say, but I just want to tell you that usually in this scenario, I lose the deal. And so I'm just curious, is there something that I can do from this point moving forward in order to earn the business? Have I left anything out? Have I not performed adequately enough up until this point? Let somebody be honest with you.
Yes. And, it's, and sometimes I guess earlier in my career, I've gotten that. I've actually, listen, dude, why I'm done selling. I know I'm not going to get this right now. Let me ask you this. What was the main thing that kind of turned you off, that led you in that whole thing? And sometimes they'll zing you, and it really, and you have a choice to make there on whether or not you're going to change your approach for that person or just say, I'll play the odds. But one guy just said to me, he goes, you know what, Dij? He says, you're just too much.
What do you do with that?
You know what I do? Some girls just don't like you, and there's nothing you can do. No amount of roses, there are no amount of poetry, there's no amount of, baseball tickets that are going to win the girl that likes Ed Nicolazzi. And Ed Nicolazzi could beat the heck out of her. I mean, Ed Nicolazzi could be as mean as all get out, but she's not going to come over to the Dij. And so you just got to, move on.
Was Ed Nicolazzi a sales rebel, you think? Was he?
Ed Nicolazzi, I don't know. Ed Nicolazzi was friends with Mike Malinsky and Joe Fusco.
Okay.
This is high school. Do you know them? I come from a part of the country that have a lot of interesting last names, and so it's good. All right, so who's your client? Do you deal mainly with companies, or you deal with a lot of individuals? And who pays? Does the individual normally pay, or does the company pay for people, or who kind of succeeds the best with your program?
We have a unique model in that we do both, and there's not a lot of sales training companies out there that will take on a company with 100 reps or take on one person. So we wanted to fill that gap for the sellers, because a lot of times the seller gets put in a program that they just have to do because the company chose it, and we don't want to be that company either, right? But giving people the outlet of being able to say, like, well, it's okay if you're taking that training, you can come train with us too. Like, we got plenty of students that their company is doing something with someone else, and they're over with us and they're learning our stuff. And that's to us, though, that's the gap. We're trying to fill that gap for people. But short answer is both. We love them both. We want to see people change. We want to see institutions change too, which, companies typically get a lot more out of it than, because one rep, right? If you put 25 in, you could get 10 of those 25 to actually show up and do the work that one rep is doing to become more successful. And imagine what that could do for your business. But there also is this to all the sales leaders out there listening, it just as much as I do. There is hesitancy because it's like, well, what's this guy going to do? It's just like you were saying earlier, Dan, like, you're too much for somebody, right? Yeah. Like, I'm okay with you not wanting me to come into your organization. It's totally fine. Someone else is going to let me come into theirs, and it's probably your competitor, but who cares? That doesn't matter. It really doesn't, because I'm not the right fit for everybody. And we recognize that. So we seek out our tribe. We look to find people that speak our language, that believe what we believe. But really, we seek to find people that have these gaps, setting more net new appointments, having good quality sales cycles, being able to create forecasts that are actually accurate, because you have people telling you the truth, and you have reps that can read, a human being. So we teach a lot of basic human communication behaviors that psychology teaches us, because I have a vicarious background of that through my wife, who has a master's and was a neuropsych for a long time, studied criminal psychology as well, which is like 80% of a buyer's persona in most cases, a C-level buyer's persona, just in case anybody was wondering. So, but it comes down to really, what is it that we're innovating, is what I should say. And anybody can go to crumpledletter.com and buy the letter or buy the entire sequence at the bottom of the page and use that product to be able to break into accounts, and they never need coaching from us. They just need a couple questions answered every once in a while, which we're here to help with, right? People can go to our new product, which is called the Rebel Refuge, which is a $9 a month subscription, like a Patreon, except we built the whole platform ourselves because we're crazy. And the whole thing is based around giving people daily activities, giving them a fun content stream like music and updates and video that are daily as well too, that keep people in this motion and notion of, I want to be a rebel, I want to exceed. And the whole thing's gamified, right? So you're making points that turn into coins that you can spend in our store, and you can reward yourself, you know. So we are creating the innovation that we believe is necessary in the sales world right now, you know, based on the success that we've had over the last couple of years and where we see the true gaps. But yeah, I mean, that's a little bit about what we got going on.
I think it's great. I think it's more in line with what's happening in the salesperson of the future holds all the cards. The salespeople today, individual contributors today, have the same access to, you know, to Zoom info, or the same access to any part. They can get a hold of anybody at any time, and get their own CRM. You no longer need to rely on a big company anymore. The paradigm has switched, and people that come to you and that have these skills, they are a tremendous asset for any organization. You can call your shots if people really take advantage of what you have to offer. So that's terrific. Well, I can't. Do you have any other questions, Chris Stone?
I don't. I mean, this has just been fantastic. We've had lots of comments over on Amazon. New follower Lamont Wayne was very active over there, as well as Ryan Swanstrom. And Dale, this has been awesome. Thanks so much for joining us. This has been certainly inspiration. I know I'm going to head over to Rebel Refuge and start joining the game, if you will. Start gamifying this thing up.
Sweet. Yeah, we launched that actually July 1st for anybody that's listening, but you can pre-sign right now at join.thesalesrebellion.com/refuge. You can go and you can get signed up, and you'll get early access if you jump in now. But we launch in July. We're gonna have a big launch party, so keep your mind and your mind open and your eyes nice and clear so you can see what's up.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming here today. And this is a testament to all you people out there who are in the sales world, who are trying to get started, that people are accessible if you take action. And that could be a letter, it could be an email, it could be a video email, or it could be an old-fashioned phone call where you pick up the phone, dial a number, and say hello, and use the 7 magic words, hey, I wonder if you can help me, and move from there. People have a need to help, and nobody apparently has a need to help greater than this man, Dale Dupree, who is awesome. I can't thank you for being like probably the best guest since the guy last week. And Chris Stone, once again, producer of the decade. Was that just money, what he puts together right there? And all you people for watching and putting up with me, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. And I want to say for the last time, you're the best. I'm the Deej. Today's your day. Go get them today.